Alrighty, so nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and just speaking with me today. So I can just get right into it.
Let's go.
So the first question I have for you is just, what was it like navigating how to lead the university during a pandemic?
It was crazy. We have a great team of people, and we were really fortunate that we have on staff an emergency manager and an emergency management system. So we put that right into place, which meant we had a policy group that I led. So we were making the decisions. And then there was this operation called Emergency Operations Center. They would track down data and bring it to us, and then we would make decisions. If you think back to what we did, the first thing was we had to bring people home from study abroad. Then we had to make the decision, don't come back from spring break. Then it was, so I feel like I spent the year and a half managing a lot of logistics, and I'm proud of the effort that we did, but it's not what chancellors show up to do on a day-to-day basis, but we were all doing it. So I have a really strong team, and that makes a huge difference. I think the other thing was we wanted from the beginning for it to be clear what was going to guide us. So we just set out those three values, which were try to be creative, be compassionate, be flexible. And we set those out because I knew it would be long and complex, is what I figured. And I couldn't be part of every decision all over the campus. So that's a way of guiding other people's decisions. If you do that, you're probably going to make a pretty good decision. So I think that was huge. And then trying to communicate. So I think one of the things we learned last year was, wow, it's important to be as transparent as you can, to communicate what's going on, what your decisions are, why you made them. It's also hard to figure out how to do that. You send emails and people say, it's too many emails, or certain groups don't read their emails. So we just really tried about everything that we could. We landed on the weekly updates with Zoom, which proved to be pretty effective and useful. So it was like trying to manage logistics and manage the flow of information about what was happening.
I'm sure that was very difficult, and I watched your weekly updates and
Did
everything.
you?
Yes, they were very helpful, yes.
Good.
Just to know what was
That's good to
going
know.
on.
And we know people, even if they didn't tune in to watch them live, we could see how many times they were being played. So it served a purpose not only for our campus, for the whole community. I would see people out in Knoxville who would say, I'm watching your updates, thank you. And there are people who don't have children here as students, So.
And then what was your personal experience with just COVID-19 and just the virus in general?
So I never got COVID. I got vaccinated as soon as I could. There was one period where I was exposed to someone, so I had to quarantine for 14 days. That was I think that's when I could really feel the pain of students who were having to quarantine. Thinking back on it, like stuck in my house because that happened after I had started coming back to work. I actually came back in July or August, but we were, mostly a lot of Zoom meetings. But one of the people that reported to me later tested positive, and we had had a meeting. We were socially distanced, but in an abundance of caution, the chancellor's got to be really careful. So my personal experience just about the disease, I was so grateful once we finally got the vaccines. And I would say, people in my family didn't get it, but I spent over a year not being able to travel to see my children who live in Austin. My parents are deceased, so I didn't have that worry. A lot of people my age were frustrated with not being able to be with elderly parents. So personally, that's kind of how it touched me. But as a leader, just watching the community and our campus go into a shape that we'd never kind of imagined, and watching you guys show so much courage, to be honest with you, the students, I'm still impressed with what y'all did in the last year and a half and what you're going to have to do this year.
Yes.
It's going to look different kind of decision making this year, but yeah.
So if you had to choose from the past year what one big key takeaway was, what do you think that would be?
Yeah. I think we learned that a university, a big organization, can pivot quickly and gear up and adapt to an unexpected situation. I think if you had told me 3 years ago that a place this big with 1,600 faculty, all these staff could, in 10 days' time, put all of our classes virtual. And there were many of us, including myself, who hadn't used Zoom very much at that point in time. Now it's, our key tool. So I think the biggest takeaway was, wow, look what we did when we had to. So I hope from that means we can have the confidence that we can pivot again on other things, not related to COVID.
And then kind of shifting for the new year,
right?
Positivity. We're back in person.
It's one of my top 5 strengths is positivity.
Yes. So what are you most looking forward to with this new school year?
Well, it's kind of already happened. Just the students back. Last night we had torch night ceremony outside in the stadium. The biggest freshman class we've ever had. The largest enrollments we think we've ever had. So just in seeing the students, just everybody's so excited to be back. And I think that's the most exciting part for me, is re-engaging and being back to the classroom. Students are excited about it. It doesn't look exactly how we wanted it to. We're going to be back in there with masks on. But I'm hoping that it won't be for long. I'm hoping that if this thing peaks and drops the Delta variant, that we'll be able to adjust our policy.
So in the odd case that it's the opposite way and the Delta variant, just there's a terrible outbreak, things like that, does the university have a plan in place in case something like that happens? So
what we learned from last year is that we know how to pivot. And I think one of the things I should make clear too is that the decision on our mask requirement in the classrooms, the labs, and other required indoor events, the chancellors in the system and the president made that decision together. And we made the big decisions together last year. So we'll continue to do that. And I think we know that if we have to take other measures, we will. But this year, the advantage we have is we have the vaccine. And an awful lot of people are vaccinated. So it's not so even if we peak, it's not the same as it was last year when we didn't understand it, we didn't have the vaccine, we didn't have a good portion of the faculty and staff vaccinated. So this year, we'll be able to, I'm vaccinated, I'm going to wear the mask in my class and carry on. And so that's kind of how we're going to approach it. I think our policy group is meeting regularly. We keep monitoring the situation. We're just encouraging students to get vaccinated. So I feel confident that if we need to pivot, we will. We've learned how to do that.
Yes, and I understand that this year the students, if they get the virus and they are in on-campus housing, that won't be provided for them, the isolation and quarantine housing?
So we're not doing isolation and quarantine housing like we did last year. So think about when we planned for students coming back to campus, we planned for a vaccinated population, to be honest with you. So what we did was made clear to students that the students living in the dorms, especially, that when you come back to campus, you need to come with a plan. So what will you do? One of the things we observed last year is most students who had to isolate or quarantine, an awful lot of them did it at home anyway. So we've told them that they need to be responsible for those plans. And so, we've shifted into managing it in a bit different way than we were last year.
Do you have a recommendation for students who may not be able to go home or they don't have somewhere?
So absolutely, one of the things they need to do is check in at the health center. We still have staff on available who are going to help support students. Last year they were doing a lot of contact tracing. It's the same folks who are very familiar with this. That's not as this part of the virus, we're not contact tracing like we were last year anywhere. But they are a support service, and we will work with students. If they've got an unusual problem and they can't go home, we'll figure out. We'll help them figure something out.
Okay. And then also more positive. For this next year, if there is one thing that you would like to tell the students, whether a message or a piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say grab a hold of this experience this year, make the most out of your time here at college. This is a great time for this university. I mean, our people are wanting to come here. Our enrollments are evidence of that. So get to know each other, step forward, and last night at the torchlight ceremony, one of the, he's a sophomore, and he spoke, I can't remember his name, we can get that for you, but he said, force yourself to meet someone you don't know. Go talk to someone who comes from a different part of the country, who looks different from you. And I hope people will do that and just make the most of it. Get out, enjoy what all this campus has to offer, because we're back.
Yes.
Yeah.